Well, it's been a while since we've had to do a video about Nintendo versus a government. Normally, when we talk about lawsuits, it deals with Nintendo suing, people going making like emulators or ROM sites or fan games or, occasionally some other stuff in there in between. But today, this is breaking news. Nintendo it's Nintendo of America, but it actually feels like it's the whole of Nintendo is suing the United States government, trying to get their tariff money back, likely over the sales of Nintendo Switch 2 and more. I've already seen the lawsuit. It is real. It is filed. This is something that really crosses that line into a political realm that we typically don't do around here. So I'm not going to sit here and make any bold statements whether I'm for or against Nintendo getting their money. I'm just going to cover the story because it really does feel like one of those memes out there, like the immovable object meets like the other immovable object, or you know what? I don't even know what the meme is. It doesn't really matter. Before we dive in, though, I want to remind you, we are trying to get to 162,000 subscribers. So if you appreciate me getting this story out quick and you're hoping for me to get out breaking news like this just as quickly in the future, I would appreciate if you would subscribe to the channel. We're also giving away a Nintendo Switch 2. You can enter absolutely for free down in the pinned comment or in the description. And let's go ahead and get into this. I'm going to read an article on this because, again, I'm not the most well-versed on the tariff situation and everything going on. I know there was like some rulings about how the tariffs are like not legal or something, and then there's other stuff going on. Look, guys, I'm not an expert on this, so I'm going to rely on this website called Aftermath that covered this, and I will show you the actual legal documents as well. So as we get in here at Aftermath, it says Nintendo sues U.S. government over tariffs. Nintendo filed a lawsuit in the United States Court of International Trade. So Nintendo of America is suing the United States government over the sweeping tariffs President Donald Trump put in place last year, according to a complaint filed Friday in the U.S. Court of International Trade and obtained by Aftermath. Though the Supreme Court has stymied the tariffs for the time being, the situation remains in flux for companies manufacturing goods outside the United States and sent stateside. The Supreme Court struck down the tariffs on February 20th, but Trump vowed to impose a new 15% tariff on many global imports under Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974. 24 states are suing over the new tariffs as of Thursday, but Nintendo of America's lawsuit is largely targeting refunds of the previously imposed tariffs that the Supreme Court struck down. The Supreme Court found that Trump could not invoke the International Emergency Economic Power Act of 1977 to put the tariffs in place. Nintendo of America's lawyers list the U.S. Department of Treasury and the Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, and the former Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, Office of the United States Trade Representatives, and U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer, U.S. Customs and Border Protection and Protection Commissioner Rodney Scott, the U.S. Department of Commerce, and the Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick. This action concerns defendants' initiation and administration of unlawful trade measures that have to date resulted in the collection of more than $200 billion in tariffs on imports from nearly all countries, the lawyers write in the complaint. The U.S. Court of International Trade has jurisdiction over civil issues relating to customs and international trade law in the country. Since February 1st, 2025, lawyers write that Trump has implemented unlawful executive orders imposing tariffs on imports from a vast swath of countries. The company is asking the court to refund with interest the tariffs it paid. Nintendo of America has a standing to sue because it is the importer of record for goods that were subject to IEEPA duties, lawyers say. Indeed, Nintendo manufactures its consoles and accessories overseas, mostly in Vietnam and China. The timing of the tariffs was particularly bad for Nintendo, which was gearing up to release its Nintendo Switch 2 console when they were announced. The company ended up delaying pre-orders for the anticipated console after tariffs were announced. Pre-orders for Switch 2 in the U.S. will not start April 9th, 2025, in order to assess the potential impact of tariffs and evolving market conditions, Nintendo told press in April of 2025. Nintendo will update timing at a later date. The launch date of June 5th, 2025 is unchanged. Nintendo began pre-orders on April 24th. The new console itself remained at $449.99, but the console's accessories received a price hike due to the increased duties. To keep the console price the same, Nintendo sent most of its Vietnam-made units to the United States, according to Bloomberg. Nintendo had already moved some of its production out of China and into Vietnam during Trump's first presidency. Though several pages of the complaint, Nintendo's lawyers recount the tariff situation beginning on February 1st, when Trump issued the executive orders imposing new tariffs. The months that followed were chaotic. The situation changed rapidly as tariffs were increased, paused, and increased again. Tariffs reaching over 125% for goods from China before they were reduced to 34% in May. Throughout multiple legal challenges, the Trump administration continued to impose the tariffs. Nintendo lawyers say that's in violation of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977, Nintendo lawyers say, and why they are entitled to a refund of the tariffs paid since February of 2025. All tariffs collected under the IEEPA duties must be refunded with interest. Lawyers write, they say the government has conceded the point in court documents. Aftermath reached out to Nintendo of America, the White House, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Treasury, Office of the United States Trade Commissions, Customs and Border Protection, and the U.S. Department of Commerce. This is a developing story. Obviously, will be updated and reported on quickly here by Nicole Carpenter. So we're going to get to the actual complaint. We're not going to read the whole thing. There's a lot of, legal verbiage and word salads in these legal complaints. And pretty much this post breaks down quite masterfully what Nintendo's mad about. Basically, the tariffs were ruled as not being legal under the act that President Donald Trump was trying to claim them under. And as such, Nintendo feels like they are owed literally their money back, right? They paid these tariffs to have their products here. And while they obviously raised prices of accessories, the big thing is Nintendo took a huge risk in not raising the price of Switch 2. So they just ate the losses on millions upon millions of sales of Nintendo Switch 2 right here in the United States. Over 4 million systems sold in the US last year. That was probably a significant chunk of money, and why Nintendo feels like they can go after the government and say, hey, give us our money back. They're probably the only ones that are probably going to sue over this. Obviously, we know states are trying to sue over the new tariffs. This is kind of wild. I'm not going to speak to whether, you should be in support or against all of this. I will just say that Nintendo lawyers don't mess around, right? They have a very good track record of victories, but they don't sue the government hardly ever. So this really is like the budding of two immovable objects. Like they just do not, want to give in. So look, we don't know what's going to happen. And this is a government lawsuit. So this is going to probably play out over a long period of time. And the government's probably going to see a number of these lawsuits coming in now that Nintendo's jumped the gun. So it's going to be quite the bloodbath. And I'm just going to get the popcorn ready because updates on this story are probably going to evolve every month. And it could take years for Nintendo to try to get that money back. And they might lose. After all, there's no guarantee that Nintendo is even in the right here. I'm not here to tell you one way or another. What I will do, though, is show you that this is a real lawsuit. We go back here and you can read the complaint itself. This is the legal document uploaded over and Scribd. You can see, obviously, Nintendo America versus all those government entities. And you can just go through this yourself. We'll link to all this down below because I want you guys to have direct access to this to verify this information for yourself. You should never just believe what I say. You should never just believe what an article says. You should always go check this out yourself. I actually read this entire article, and upon reading the whole thing, realized that I should probably read a better in English breakdown for layman's terms. And that's when I found the appropriate website that I did that seemed to stay away from agendas and taking political sides and instead just focused on interpreting what Nintendo is going after and why they're going after it. And obviously who's involved and who they're suing in particular. You'll notice that, President Trump himself isn't being sued because he doesn't have the power to actually enact all this stuff. It's all the people that allowed this stuff to get enacted that he seems to be going after. So in the end, folks, I'm just going to sit back and wait to see what happens. This is definitely an evolving story. This is definitely one that we need to keep our eyes on. I don't know how this impacts anything on the consumer end. If Nintendo wins, does this mean they're going to bring the prices of their accessories back down? Obviously, for right now, they're not going to because they might not get the money back. And now Trump's trying to push tariffs through a completely different method. So I don't think prices will be affected on this unless unless the government loses, they have to pay Nintendo back. And then obviously anything else that administration is trying to do ends up getting blocked. We have no idea. This is way too political and way too above my pay grade to really dive into exact details on. So I'm reliant on other sources. You guys are free to do your own independent research on this. What I will ask, of course, is that people be polite to each other down in the comments. Keep reminding yourselves that none of us made the decisions for the tariffs to exist. None of us made the decisions of Nintendo to eat the cost and or raise prices on accessories. None of us are involved in this direct lawsuit between them and the government. So please be respectful none of us really have a say in any of this. We just have to sit back and see what happens, whether you want Nintendo to win, whether you want Nintendo to lose, whether you think the government should keep the money. Look, guys, I'm not here to debate that. I'm just here to get the popcorn ready because we know this is going to be the legal battle of legal battles. I almost wish that if this ever went to trial or anything like that, that it would be like this big televised event, kind of like we got with like the Amber Heard trial between her and Johnny Depp, how that was like televised and everything. It would be really neat if this ever went to trial, if it ended up that way. I'm not sure if it will go to trial, but if it does, I think it would be at least be entertaining to watch two immovable objects try to stand firm on why they are in the right and they should get the money or keep the money or do whatever. It's going to be wild. Nintendo's lawyers are among the best. So we'll see what happens. It's a pretty bold move to go after the government to get your money, but Nintendo feels like they need to make this step. Some may worry there could be some repercussions. Repercussions like the government backlashing against Nintendo for doing this and putting regulations on them. I don't know if there's legal protections against them doing that, because when you're going after a government entity, they would be enticed potentially to impose like individual sanctions against companies. I hope that that's something that can't happen, because I honestly, in the end, none of us want to see Nintendo get banned from the US. That would just be terrible. And I don't even know if I want to entertain that thought, but it does cross my mind of when you're going after the government, is the government going to bite back in a way that kind of sucks? So we'll see. Anyways, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. I am Nathaniel Robojans down below. Please be respectful and leave your thoughts on this down in the comment section. If it starts to turn ugly, don't expect to see me down there, because I got no bone to pick in this fight, man. Just reporting the news. Catch you in the next one.